Welcome to a journey into the complex heart of 20th century history. How does one man, a lifelong socialist, a dazzling diplomat, and an iron-willed authoritarian, hold an entire nation together for nearly 40 years against the crushing pressures of the Cold War? This is the story of Josip Broz Tito, the paradoxical Marshal who forged modern Yugoslavia. We will explore his rise from obscurity, his stunning defiance of Stalin, and the reality of life under his unique brand of rule. Was he a hero, a tyrant, or a necessary figure for his time? Stay with us as we uncover the true face of the man who dared to be different. Yugoslavia, a fragile 20th century creation uniting the southern Slavs, owed its 4-decade existence to the singular force of one man, Tito. On November 29, 1943, as the new republic was formally declared, Tito stepped into the spotlight, instantly claiming the title of Marshal, a designation he would bear until his final day. This pivotal moment initiated a lifetime of rule and dramatically charted the nation's course toward socialism. Tito's public persona was meticulously constructed. His official biography positioned him as a wounded soldier and a celebrated veteran of the First World War, a man whose trajectory mirrored the struggles of his people, rising from a factory worker to a soldier and then to a revolutionary leader. Everywhere, from official posters to cinematic portrayals, he was most frequently seen in his marshal's uniform. The message was unmistakable. Tito was a leader tempered by struggle, someone ordinary Yugoslavs, the peasants, the workers, the veterans, could see themselves reflected in. But his most defining, most dangerous moment was yet to come. How could a small state leader dare to challenge the might of the Soviet Union? Tito's most spectacular transformation arrived with the seismic 1948 split from Joseph Stalin and the Soviet Union. The Cominform resolution formally condemned Yugoslavia, but Tito flatly refused to yield to Moscow's political domination. This singular act of defiance became the absolute cornerstone of Yugoslavia's national identity, allowing Tito to cultivate an image not as a mere satellite communist, but as a uniquely independent socialist. Yet, this break came with a perilous price. Yugoslav official records and propaganda vividly claimed that Stalin dispatched a relentless series of assassins against Tito. Tito's legendary response, whether entirely factual or brilliantly apocryphal, is an unforgettable piece of Cold War history. "Stop sending men to kill me. We've already caught 5. One with a bomb, another with a rifle. If you don't stop, I'll send one to Moscow, and I won't need to send a second." This retort perfectly encapsulated the moment, proving that Tito was the one global figure who had the nerve to say no to Stalin. This daring independence gave birth to the policy later dubbed Titoism, a distinct form of socialism characterized by independence, often referred to as socialism with a human face. But this image of a milder socialism hid a much harsher reality that played out within Yugoslavia's borders. Could a leader who championed independence tolerate dissent within his own nation? Despite the international image of a softer socialism, dissent within Yugoslavia was ruthlessly suppressed. In the immediate aftermath of the break with Moscow, the 1950s saw the iron hand of Tito's rule descend upon those suspected of Stalinist loyalty or any form of opposition. Surveillance was pervasive, and citizens were routinely encouraged to inform on their neighbors. Prison camps quickly filled with the unlucky, where re-education meant years of harsh forced labor and deprivation. This period, grimly known as the Informbureau years, exposed the profound paradox at the heart of Titoism. Having successfully broken free from Stalin's grip, Tito nonetheless employed many of the same repressive methods his former Soviet mentor had perfected. He needed more than force. He needed a compelling story to justify his singular power. How does one create a national myth powerful enough to hold 6 republics together under an unprecedented non-dynastic rule? From the very beginning, Tito's image was the central pillar of the regime's stability. By the 1950s, museums celebrating his life were already being established, and his modest birthplace was monumentally transformed into a national shrine. Lacking royal lineage or dynastic claim, Tito's legitimacy had to be painstakingly forged through history and myth. He strategically compared himself to figures like Matija Gubec, the leader of a 16th-century peasant revolt, positioning himself as a timeless symbol of justice for the oppressed. The state heavily invested in culture to cement this narrative. Epic wartime films such as The Battle of Neretva dramatized Yugoslavia's foundational struggle, famously featuring Hollywood star Richard Burton portraying Tito himself. Every poster, painting, and media report relentlessly reinforced the narrative of the heroic, indispensable leader. This carefully crafted domestic image was the foundation, but his ultimate authority lay in his ability to command respect on the world stage. How did a leader from a relatively small nation become one of the most respected and feared diplomats on the planet? Following the stunning break with Stalin, Tito immediately seized the global spotlight, positioning himself as a vital mediator. Though a communist, he executed a masterful diplomatic balancing act, skillfully playing East and West against each other. He was a champion of decolonization, notably becoming the first white European leader to recognize newly independent governments in Africa, such as Tunisia. This bold stance earned him tremendous respect across the developing world. In 1961, Yugoslavia hosted the historic founding of the Non-Aligned Movement, a coalition of states determined to maintain independence from both the American-led and Soviet-led Cold War blocs. Tito became one of its chief architects, an achievement that amplified Yugoslavia's voice far beyond its geographical size and military power. For much of the world, Yugoslavia came to be seen as the ultimate neutral ground, neither East nor West, but a uniquely independent power. And at the nexus of this new global influence stood Tito, the man with 2 distinct faces. How could he maintain the image of a simple man of the people while simultaneously living and acting like a world aristocrat? Tito's domestic image was painstakingly simple. He was one of us, the son of a peasant, a worker from the factory floor, with popular rumor even suggesting he was the godfather to every 9th child born in the country. Yet, when traveling abroad, he was a figure of pure sophistication. Polished, multilingual, allegedly a pianist and a fencer, impeccably clad in Hermes ties and custom-tailored suits. He played the part of a cultured aristocrat on the international stage. This calculated dual strategy, one face for his people and another for the world's elite, was sustained by his extraordinary charisma and political dexterity. For decades, this dramatic performance successfully sustained his power. But his authority wasn't just imposed from above. It was actively celebrated by the citizens themselves. What national ritual turned devotion to the leader into an annual mass pilgrimage for the youth of the entire nation? Tito's hold on power was reinforced by the active participation of ordinary Yugoslavs in the celebration of his myth. The most compelling example was the Relay of Youth. Every year, culminating on May 25th, Tito's birthday, young people would carry a specially designed baton in a massive relay race across all the federated republics. The grand journey would conclude in Belgrade, where the baton was presented to Tito before a stadium packed with enthusiastic citizens. These were far more than simple parades. They were annual mass rituals, secular pilgrimages where citizens performed their devotion. Under the unifying national banner of brotherhood and unity, the nation symbolically reaffirmed its central identity around the figure of its Marshal. But beyond the propaganda and the parades, What was the actual quality of everyday life for the average Yugoslav citizen? For ordinary citizens, daily life under Tito was a unique blend of socialist hardship and distinct privilege. Housing was directly linked to employment, with workers receiving apartments, typically in the brutalist-style concrete blocks characteristic of the era. These new homes were furnished with appliances and goods manufactured in Yugoslavia's own state-run factories, symbolizing national self-sufficiency. Crucially, Yugoslavia pioneered the system of workers' self-management, an economic model that theoretically empowered laborers to act as decision-makers and have a role in governing their enterprises. This progressive idea fundamentally set the country apart from both capitalist market economies and the rigid Soviet-style central planning. The nation's commitment to its non-aligned position was visible in its education system, which opened universities to students from Africa, fostering future diplomatic ties. However, perhaps the most remarkable privilege was the ability to travel. Unlike citizens trapped behind the Soviet Iron Curtain, Yugoslav citizens held a passport that granted them access to both the East and the West. For many, this freedom of movement was the definitive proof that Tito's Yugoslavia was truly exceptional, a model of independent socialism. Yet, this entire carefully constructed world was destined to unravel. What was the final, dramatic political spectacle that marked Tito's reign and foretold the fragility of his state? As Tito advanced in age, his reign increasingly became a series of grand ceremonies and public spectacles. Colossal May Day parades showcasing the Yugoslav army and prominent meetings with world leaders, from kings to presidents and revolutionaries. These displays cemented his image as both the eternal father of the nation and a respected world statesman. Even his death was a political and dramatic event. In 1975, Tito had already prepared his final resting place, the House of Flowers, a tomb that dramatically blended American neoclassicism with Soviet monumentality. When he passed away in May 1980, the entire nation plunged into mourning. 500,000 people lined the streets of Belgrade as the Yugoslav army carried his coffin in a somber procession. But the funeral was more than a national tragedy. It became one of the largest state gatherings in recorded history. World leaders, many of them bitter political rivals, converged to pay their respects. This extraordinary attendance was the final testament to Tito's unique place in global politics, a man who, if only for a single day, could bring the Eastern and Western blocs together. The future, however, was uncertain. Could a system built around one man survive his disappearance? The ubiquitous political slogan was, "After Tito, Tito," a desperate promise of continuity. But the phrase also revealed the unsettling truth. Yugoslavia had become tragically dependent on its singular leader. With Tito gone, the system's deep-seated structural and ethnic tensions rapidly surfaced. Within a single decade, the delicate unity he had so fiercely maintained dissolved, and the country spiraled into a devastating collapse. Tito had built a state strong enough to command global respect, yet too deeply tied to his personality to survive his passing. He ruled like a dictator, utilizing the secret police, mass surveillance, and prison camps. Simultaneously, he presided over economic growth, social welfare, and freedoms, especially travel, that were rare and envied within the socialist world. He successfully defied Stalin, balanced the great powers of the East and West, and elevated Yugoslavia onto the world stage. Today, unlike many of his contemporaries, Tito remains surprisingly well regarded in certain parts of the former Yugoslavia. He was a paradox, a powerful myth, and a leader whose memory is held with both deep admiration and bitter resentment. So, what is your judgment? Was Josip Broz Tito a benevolent statesman, a ruthless dictator, or was he somehow impossibly both? If you found this historical journey captivating, make sure to like this video and comment below with your thoughts on Tito's legacy. Remember to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Our animated historical documentaries, based on the research of respected historians with references shown on screen, are designed to make history engaging and entertaining. Stay tuned for our next deep dive into the conflicts that followed the collapse of Tito's dream.